Welcome to the story. Don't forget to like, subscribe and support me. Alex Winters leaned back in his worn leather chair, staring at the holographic interface that flickered in front of him. The cool glow of the Void Dominion logo floated in the air, the letters sleek and metallic, casting faint shadows against the gray walls of his cramped apartment. The game's tagline blinked beneath it. Conquer the stars, rule the galaxy. He smirked. It wasn't just a game anymore, at least not for him. With a flick of his wrist, the screen expanded, revealing the galactic map of the game world of vast clusters of star systems, some controlled by rival players, others in his growing empire. Alex had risen quickly in the rankings, and now, at just 26, he was one of the most feared rulers in Void Dominion. It was more than just skill. It was an obsession. The universe in Void Dominion had consumed his every thought, every waking moment. He didn't care. After all, what did he have left? The buzz of a new message snapped him out of his reverie. His finger hovered over the alert, hesitating for a moment. The sender's name read Spectre. Chosen. That single word made his pulse quicken. Though he didn't know why. He'd seen the name before. Rhea Spectre had appeared a few times in the game's top-tier arenas, always pulling off impossible victories, vanishing before anyone can learn more. Alex clicked the message. You have been chosen. The message blinked, then dissolved into the interface. Chosen for what? Alex muttered to himself. Before he could ponder further, the game map shifted, pulling him into a new battle, a real-time engagement against another top-tier player. Focus. No time for distractions. His hands moved quickly over the controls, commanding fleets, launching probes, dispatching fighter squadrons. The enemy's forces were fast, darting in and out of asteroid fields, but Alex's superior tactics were relentless. Within minutes, the opposing player's fleet was decimated. Victory again. Another system under his control. But the message from Spectre lingered in his mind. Chosen. For what? Days passed, and the game continued. Alex's empire grew as he won battle after battle. Alliances formed and fell, and the vastness of Void Dominion stretched out before him like an infinite playground. Yet, something gnawed at him. It wasn't just Spectre's cryptic message. It was the feeling that the game itself had started to change. NPC saw those characters meant to be mindless, scripted additions to the game world began acting a broken bar differently. Some of them seemed aware, alive, even. It was during one of these battles that it happened again. Alex was navigating his fleet through a nebula field, ambushing a rival clan's convoy, when an alien trader ship suddenly veered off its course. His eyes narrowed as he zoomed in. The ship isn't just avoiding the battle. It was heading directly toward one of his outposts. That wasn't normal behavior. NPCs didn't act on their own. Let's see what you're up to, Alex muttered, diverting a frigate to intercept. The trader ship stopped before reaching his station, and a communication panel popped up on Alex's screen. You have been chosen. This time, the message was accompanied by the image of a tall, dark figure, shrouded in shadow. Spectre. The same name. The same haunting message. Alex leaned closer to the screen, his heart pounding. He'd spent countless hours in the game, seen every possible trick and strategy. But this was new. Was it a glitch, a hack, or something else? Before he could react, his screen flickered, and his avatar and his in-game representation collapsed to the ground, writhing in pain. Alex's body jolted back, a sharp stab of pain lancing through his chest. His breath hitched as he gasped, grabbing his shirt instinctively, though there was nothing physically wrong with him. He stared at the screen, wide-eyed. The game. He had felt it. The trader ship disappeared from his view, leaving behind only that cryptic message. Alex shut down the game, rubbing his temples as he paced the length of his apartment. It wasn't real. It couldn't be real. But the pain of the shock of Ida had felt all too genuine. Something was happening. Something bigger than he could understand. He needed answers. Later that night, after several sleepless hours, he stumbled onto a forum for high-level Void Dominion players. Hidden among the usual posts about tactics, alliances, and battles. There was a thread. The game is real. Alex scrolled through it, his heart racing. The players, so many of them top-ranked, like Hema, described strange occurrences similar to his, cryptic messages from NPCs, sudden bursts of pain during gameplay, hints that Void Dominion wasn't just a game, it was something much more. One username caught his attention: Lydia Torres. She was a legend in the game, having dominated vast sections of the universe before mysteriously vanishing a year ago. Her post stood out. They're real. The Drakari. They're watching us, training us. Meet me if you want to know the truth. A location followed: New Haven Cafe, downtown. It was insane, but Alex couldn't shake the feeling that she was telling the truth. He needed to find her. The cafe was dimly lit, tucked between a string of aging buildings on a narrow street in the city. Alex's nerves were on edge as he scanned the room. Lydia sat in the back, a woman in her early 30s, her sharp eyes betraying a depth of knowledge and experience. She nodded as he approached, waving him over. "You came," she said, her voice calm but heavy with an undercurrent of urgency. "I need answers," Alex replied, sitting across from her. "What's going on? Why did you leave the game?" Lydia took a slow breath, glancing around the cafe before leaning in. "Void Dominion, a broken bar. It's not just a game, it's a recruitment tool, a training ground." "For what?" "For the Drakari, an alien species. They've been watching us, selecting the best players as strategists, tacticians to become their future rulers. The game simulates real battles, real conflicts happening across the galaxy. The top players, we're their candidates." Alex stared at her, disbelief warring with the memory of the pain he'd felt. "That's insane." "It sounds that way, but it's the truth. I didn't believe it either until they contacted me. They showed me what's really out there. And now a broken bar. They're reaching out to you." "Why me?" "You're rising too fast. They've noticed. The best players are brought into something called the Void Trials. It's not a game anymore. It's real. You've felt it, haven't you?" "The pain?" Alex nodded slowly, still processing her words. "What do they want from us?" "To see if we're worthy, if we're capable of leading their armies, controlling entire systems. The Void Trials are the final test. Win, and you're offered power beyond anything you can imagine." "But Lucia broken bar." Lydia's eyes darkened. "Well, you don't get another chance." He ran a hand through his hair, mind racing. "What happens next?" "They'll invite you. You'll face the trials soon. But remember this, Alex, once you start, there's no going back. You'll either become one of them, or you'll lose everything, and I mean everything." Alex stood, his pulse racing with equal parts fear and excitement. "I'll do it. I don't have anything to lose." Lydia nodded grimly. "Then you're ready." It didn't take long for the invitation to come. A few days later, as Alex was navigating through another intense in-game battle, the screen froze. His avatar stood still, suspended in the center of a vast, dark space. Then the words appeared: "Welcome to the Void Trials." Before he could react, the world around him shifted. The screen blurred, and Alex felt himself being pulled transported into a new reality. The apartment dissolved, replaced by a massive alien space station, its walls lined with strange symbols and glowing blue energy. Alex's heart pounded as he looked around. Dozens of other players stood nearby, their faces a mix of awe and terror. In the center of the room, a holographic figure appeared, a tall, slender alien with pale skin and glowing eyes. "The Drakari, you have been chosen," the figure intoned, its voice echoing in the vast chamber. "The Void Trials will determine your fate. Survive, and you will be given control over entire star systems. Fail, and you will cease to exist in both this world and the one you know." Alex swallowed hard. This was it. The game had just become terrifyingly real. Alex stood frozen, the words of the Drakari still echoing in his mind. "Survive, or you will cease to exist." His heart pounded, but he steadied himself. This was no longer a game, and the stakes were far beyond what he had imagined. He scanned the other contestants. They were a mix of the best players he had fought alongside and against in Void Dominion, their faces twisted with fear or hardened with determination. The alien space station hummed around them, its walls pulsating with energy. The Drakari hovered in the center, motionless except for their eyes, which glowed brighter as they continued speaking. Your first trial begins now. You will be divided into teams and tasked with conquering a planetary system. Victory will depend on your ability to lead, strategize, and survive. Failure will not be tolerated. Before Alex could react, a bright light enveloped him, and his surroundings warped. He found himself standing on the surface of a desolate planet, a barren landscape of jagged rock and swirling dust storms. Beside him stood Lydia and a handful of other players he vaguely recognized. They all had the same wide-eyed look of disbelief, but there was no time for hesitation. In the sky above, enormous warships descended, their silhouettes cutting through the clouds. Lydia glanced at him. We need to move fast. This isn't just about winning, it's about staying alive. Alex nodded. His military training kicked in. This was no different from the battlefields he had once known, except the stakes were far greater. We'll set up a defensive perimeter and use the terrain to our advantage. There's no telling what we're up against, but we'll need to hold this ground. The others fell into line, their gaming personas stripped away, leaving only raw survival instincts. They scoured the landscape for resources, setting up makeshift fortifications using the alien technology scattered around them. The planet itself seemed hostile, the air thick with a metallic taste and the wind howling like a distant scream. Yet, they pressed on. Hours passed, and the first wave of enemies appeared over the horizon. Massive mech-like creatures lumbered forward, their footsteps shaking the ground. They weren't NPCs, these were real, tangible threats, likely controlled by other players or even the Drakari themselves. Alex's team launched their assault, coordinating strikes with practiced efficiency. Plasma cannons roared to life, cutting down the Mechs as they advanced, but the enemies were relentless. Lydia was beside him, her face set with determination. This isn't just about defense. We need to take the fight to them. The longer we sit here, the more vulnerable we are. She was right. Alex gathered the group. We move in an hour. We're going to take the command ship. He pointed to the massive vessel hovering in the distance, its shadow casting a long, ominous line across the battlefield. As they advanced, the weight of the situation bore down on Alex. This wasn't just a test of his tactical prowess, this was life or death. But he thrived under pressure, and his instincts guided him through the chaos. They fought their way through the enemy lines, each step a bloody victory. The closer they got to the command ship, the more intense the resistance became. By the time they reached the ship's perimeter, only a handful of them were left. Alex wiped the sweat and dirt from his brow, his body aching from the relentless combat. He glanced at Lydia, who was holding her side, blood seeping through her armor. You still with me? She grimaced but nodded. Let's finish this. They stormed the command ship, blasting through the entrance with everything they had left. Inside, it was eerily quiet. The hum of the ship's systems was the only sound as they made their way toward the control room. Alex could feel his heart hammering in his chest. This was it. The culmination of everything they had fought for. The control room doors slid open, revealing a figure standing at the center console. Alex froze. It was Spectre. The mysterious figure turned, a slow smile spreading across their face. I've been waiting for you. Alex's blood ran cold. You a broken bar, you're not a player. Spectre chuckled, their voice low and mocking. No, Alex, I'm far beyond that now. I was once like you, yes, but the Drakari have elevated me. I control far more than just the ship. I control worlds. Lydia raised her weapon, her face twisted in rage. You betrayed us. You let us think this was just a game. Spectre's eyes glowed with a strange intensity. It was never just a game. The Drakari are choosing their leaders, and I've already proven myself worthy. Now, it's your turn. Will you join me? Or will you fall? Alex's mind raced. This wasn't a battle he could win with force alone. Spectre had transcended the game, become something more. The only way to survive this was to outthink him. You're right, Alex said slowly, lowering his weapon. The Drakari are choosing their leaders. But you haven't won yet. Spectre's smile faltered. What are you talking about? Alex stepped forward, his voice calm. This is all part of the test, isn't it? The Drakari don't just want warriors. They want rulers. They want someone who can see the bigger picture, someone who can lead not just with strength, but with wisdom. You're too focused on winning this fight, Spectre. That's why you'll lose. For a moment, silence hung in the air. Then, Spectre's eyes narrowed. You think you can outsmart me? You're just a player. You don't understand the stakes here. Alex shook his head. I understand perfectly. This is about more than just survival. It's about proving that we're capable of leading. And that means knowing when to fight a broken bar and when to negotiate. The room seemed to hold its breath as Alex stared down Spectre, his heart pounding in his chest. He wasn't sure if this gamble would work, but it was the only chance they had. He could feel the weight of Lydia's eyes on him, waiting, trusting him to make the right move. Spectre hesitated, his gaze flickering between Alex and the control console. The tension in the room was suffocating. Finally, Spectre lowered his head. Perhaps you're right. Perhaps I've been too focused on the wrong goal. Alex felt a surge of relief, but it was short-lived. Spectre raised his gaze again, his eyes burning with a new intensity. But that doesn't mean I'll let you in. In a flash, Spectre moved, his hand flying to the console. Alex shouted, lunging forward, but it was too late. The ship's systems roared to life, the walls trembling as the engines powered up. Spectre's laugh echoed through the control room as he activated the ship's self-destruct sequence. You may have outsmarted me, Spectre hissed, but you won't survive this. Alex grabbed Lydia's arm, pulling her toward the exit. We have to go, now. They sprinted through the ship, the walls shuddering as explosions rippled through the structure. Alex's mind raced as he searched for a way out. The hangar bay. If they could reach it in time, they might have a chance. They burst through the hangar doors, the floor vibrating beneath their feet as the ship began to tear itself apart. A small shuttle sat at the far end of the bay, its engines still powered down. Alex cursed under his breath. They didn't have time to start it up. The entire ship was seconds away from detonating. But then, just as all seemed lost, the bay doors opened, and the familiar hum of a hovercraft filled the air. A sleek Drakari vessel swooped in, its pilot gesturing for them to board. Without a second thought, Alex and Lydia leapt into the ship, the bay doors slamming shut behind them as the shuttle rocketed away. The command ship exploded behind them, a blinding flash of light filling the viewport as they sped through space. Alex collapsed into the seat beside Lydia, his chest heaving with exhaustion. They had made it, barely. Lydia looked at him, her face pale but alive. What now? Alex stared out at the stars, his mind still reeling from the events of the past few hours. Now a broken bar, we figure out what comes next. The Drakari's test wasn't over. He had survived, but the real challenge had only just begun.